Hi, it's Dr. Pauline. This is part 4 of my series on antidepressants. So today I'm going to talk to you about some of the outcome studies and then what they saw with long-term use. When they did some studies, they found that if they administered St. John's wort, and we're talking about they would do this for like 8 weeks or so and then study or reevaluate what are their depression rates and go through those depression scales. 24% of St. John's wort users at the end of that 8 weeks were doing better and looked as if they had dealt with their depression symptoms fully. 25% of the people who were put on Zoloft also were doing better at the end of the 8 weeks, and 32% of the people who were given a placebo were doing better at the end of the 8 weeks. One of the things we see in all these long-term studies, and I want you to know they've been studying these drugs since the late 1950s and into the 1960s, and they keep just recycling and coming up with different names and different types of drugs, and they do these studies on them, and every single one of them shows that the placebo group recovers better. Why is that? Well, most of us who might have an episode of depression, if we're given enough support and enough psychosocial support, we'll recover. And it may be the only episode we ever have. In fact, in the 18-month to 2-year studies, they found that over 30% of the people who were never given a drug had long-term results of never having another episode. Those who were given the drugs had a 19% long-term healing on the drugs. So the one thing that we've absolutely learned about long-term outcomes of these studies is that those who are given drugs also tended to have relapse at a higher rate. So if you went back and looked at them, they could say at the end of the 8 weeks, oh look, this drug worked this well. But when you go back 2 years later, 4 years later, 5 years later, how are these people doing with their social life? How are they doing in life in general? How are they doing with their drugs? Are they working? Are they going to school? Are they able to manage their own life? And really, the outcome studies have all shown after 5 years, those who never took an antidepressant but had cognitive behavioral therapy or some kind of psychosocial support were as high as 75% in some of those groups functioning normally and well and managing their life. With the antidepressants, the numbers are much, much lower. We see less than 40% are managing their own life. And what we actually see is, as I mentioned in the last one, they have become lifelong mental health patients. And the number of people who are on Social Security disability insurance because of mental health has just increased exponentially over the last 50 years. And many, many people are now permanently disabled because they were just given a drug and not given the kind of psychosocial support that they actually needed to be well. So next time I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, well, what would it look like if I did decide that I wanted to stop taking this drug? I am not recommending that you do that today. But, come back for our next video, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that.